This is Larry Casso, Director of the Baton Rouge Fine Arts Academy. Once again, welcoming you to my studio, where we're about to do a watercolor that we're going to title Low Tide. It probably was in Maine, however, it could be low tide anywhere in the world, or in the United States particularly, since that's what we're acquainted with. And we're going to proceed with this painting using our five basic colors that we've been using in many of the paintings that we've been doing, because I treat these somewhat like sketches. I put them together. I'm not really too concerned about what they're going to look like, and from the standpoint that I'm not really afraid to try different things on them. They're done very quickly. This happens to be one that's going to be done for an organization, a church raffle that I donate to every year. I always try to do a really good job. In fact, I put a little bit more thought and so forth into these things many times, because I want it to be nice, and I want it to reflect the fact that I believe in the particular organization and what it's trying to do. So I'm going to, first of all, give you a brief lesson. This is something I really don't do very often, and I thought it was time to maybe mention it again. We're going to get some Scotch number 232 masking tape, and we're going to run a piece of it across here like this. Now, the reason I mentioned the 232, it's the only one that I've found that really does not have a problem as far as leakage. So we're going to begin with it. Now, I use also, I think it's a number 24 blade. Just hold it up a little bit closer for you. In fact, let's bring this down a little bit closer where you can see this a little bit better. And evidently the blade is probably not as sharp as I would like it to be for the moment, but we'll get the job done. Then we're going to come across like this, finish it off. Here's the end of the vessel. Leave a little bit of an area here and here, and then we'll just cut the rest of it below the edge of the tape there. There we go. Now, I might mention to you that when you're doing something like this, you have certain objects that you want to remain white. Now, some people like to use different things. Some people use Misket or Frisket, whatever the brand name you happen to prefer. I've found that this particular brand has a tendency to, or substance I should say, even though it works very well, has a tendency to leave very hard edges, and also leaks, and many times it's very difficult to get it to cover evenly and crisply. So we're going to come across the bottom here. Now, in doing this, I really have it projected that this is going to be the horizon line. I want you to notice I made sure where the boat comes in here, I did not, I left that little white space. I didn't want this line to come across and be a tangent. So we started with the horizon placed correctly. Now the boat, the foreground, all of this is going to be extremely dark. We're then going to move to the distant buildings, which will be done somewhat lightly. And then the final thing that we're going to do is to actually keep in mind the fact that the sky is going to be the lightest part. This will be the middle tone, and the foreground area here is going to be the darkest. So I only masked the part that I wanted to remain very crisp. When I finish the sky, I'm going to come back over this and layer some light washes and kind of give the feeling of distance to it. And that will be created by the lighter sky, middle tone, and then the dark. But for our purposes right now, we wanted to go ahead and put the dark area, Misket taped area that was going to be the darkest. Okay. Now we'll take our brush which looks like it may not be showing up on the screen. Maybe we can pull up a little bit higher here where you can see it a little bit more clearly. Alright, we'll pull that down here, and I think we're getting most of it in here. Now, if you notice, what I'm using 300-pound Arches watercolor paper, using the M-gram watercolors, which if you listen to my tapes at all, you know how I really do enjoy them. And the Misket I used was a Winsor Newton Misket, so those are the three ingredients. This is 300-pound cold pressed watercolor paper. Now I'm going to come across like this. Now, one of the things I've learned is that you have a tendency sometimes, if you really enjoy playing with this stuff like I do, to overdo your skies. So what I'd like to concentrate on is keeping the sky relatively simple. Now I have a source of photographs I've taken of skies. I really do like to incorporate these into my paintings because they really, I think, add a nice effect to it, and but not overdo them. So first of all, our 5 colors I think I mentioned, but we'll mention them again. It's the cadmium red, ultramarine blue, burnt sienna, Hooker's green, and the cadmium yellow. Now, I might just mention that I've just recently started using some Princeton brushes, which are made in America. That's really the most critical thing today, because we want good quality wherever it comes from. But evidently this is a person that really knows a lot about the brush industry, and I'm very pleased to say that I'm using them and enjoying them very much. Okay, now I know this could be a late evening, okay, and I want it to be at a point where the sun is dropping. It's just going below some relatively thick clouds, and we have a lot of the light area up above it. So to accomplish this, I'm going to take a little bit of the cadmium yellow first of all, burnt sienna, and we're going to start with a very, very light wash at the top. Now I'm getting a piece of scrap paper now. Always keep a piece of paper around me. And what I'll do with the paper is experiment with the color, you see, and I find I like that. Isn't it better than doing it after you put it on your watercolor paper and find out, hey, that's not what I had in mind. Now notice I'm just going over everything. This is what I was referring to a minute ago when I mentioned that you have to be aware. I'm going to leave some of this completely white. You have to be aware of the fact that these objects are going to be slightly darker than the sky. So we're going to start with that part of it. And then we're going to come in, and I'm going to take a little bit of cadmium red and burnt sienna. It's getting mostly the burnt sienna. Take that back. Let's try the burnt sienna and maybe a little bit of the cadmium yellow, and then we'll put a little cadmium red with it. Now I want this to be on there relatively lightly, and what I basically would like to do in the lower area here is just give an effect. We have some clouds breaking up. Maybe we'll get a little bit more yellow in that. And we have some of this sunlight beginning to break through, or sunset I should say. It's the sunlight, but it's actually the sun setting. Now having done all of that, I want to take my ultramarine blue and my cadmium red. I'm going to leave it a little heavier on the blue, because I want it to be kind of a cool looking, violet looking sky. Something I like to do. Look how that blue automatically begins to complement the yellow. So we're going to just do this now. We're going to come across the bottom. I don't want it to be too heavy. Now I'm noticing it's a little stronger than I wanted to as far as the maybe the blue part of it, okay? So I'm going to take a little bit of the burnt sienna, test my color again, mix it with it, and what that's going to do is just going to barely gray it down a little bit. Now as I look at this, I think I'd like this a little lighter, less pigmenty. I'll always come back and touch it up again later. Okay, now we're just going to come on up the bottom of the painting. I'm going to go a little bit over this, it doesn't matter. I'm going to come right to this area here where I want a little bit of it breaking through the cloud. I'm going to go across the top of it like this. Now, where there's a harsh line like this, it's due to the fact that now remember, when I talk about trying things like this doesn't always mean they're going to work. And when they don't work, such as in cases like this, we forget about them. Now, if you wonder why you see very few paintings that I ever do that have a lot of mistakes in them, it's because I just never show them to y'all. Or I hide them like I just did. Okay. Now we're going to come up a little bit higher. And we're going to just start allowing for some type of a minor cloud effect. Come back the same way like this. Connect this. And then maybe right across here, just to break up the top of that roof, we'll have a little bit more of it. Now, as we come up above, I want to go only with the the burnt sienna and the blue, and I want to have a little bit more of a grayish cast. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're just going to experiment with putting some little different cloud formations. These are even going to be a little bit lighter. These are going to be like they're going right behind the clouds I've just been working on there. Okay. Come back again like this. And the nice thing about doing these things in a situation like I'm doing them right now, if they don't work out, you're never going to see this tape. But I generally like to stay with something and play with it till it works, and I think this will when we finish with it. Okay, now let's get a little bit more of the bluish color in here. Oh, excuse me, more of a violet type of color. It's drawing a little bit light. That's going to be the blue and the red. Like it to be just a tiny bit stronger. So we'll just come across the bottom. Hey, that's going to be fine. Now this is dried somewhat, so it's going to give me a little bit more control over what I'm doing up here. Won't run quite as much. Some of that will let it kind of come together, go behind it. Not one to give up that easily. I'm still going to try to get a little bit of that sienna color coming through here, but I don't think it's going to work again. So, wow, now wait a minute, we might be onto something here. I do believe we'll put the eliminator on that. Now it doesn't bother me that some of this color mixes with it. In fact, I think it's going to be kind of pretty. This bothers me here that some of this is not, it's drying too harsh of an edge, so I'm going to connect that together. Maybe we'll just leave a little bit of that on there for whatever reason. Okay, we've played with this long enough. I think it's a good time to stop it. I think it's accomplishing what I'd like it to accomplish. So we'll just go ahead and stop for a moment, allow this to dry. All right, we're ready now. After allowing this to dry, and then of course I use the blow dryer in a little bit, we're going to take this up. In fact, let's leave this here just a minute. I just forgot. Okay, we're going to work on those distant buildings. Now, the problem is always deciding what particular colors do you want to use. Okay, now I'm going to go out on a limb. I'm going to just try using a little bit of green with the burnt sienna and the ultramarine blue. Now the burnt sienna and the ultramarine blue will give it a nice grayish tint to begin with. Green will add a little color to it, unusual color. Now we want to keep in mind that this is kind of a late evening scene. We don't really have a lot of light areas that we're dealing with. And so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to try to get the tone on it just correctly. Okay, notice I'm using a 1/2 inch brush. Now I want this to be a little bit lighter, so I anticipated the fact that I would be dragging this down. So we'll come like this. Now just drag this part down like this. Now there's some posts and all in the front of it. I'm not even fooling with that right now. Strictly concentrating on getting the right feel and the right tone for this particular color. Now we could possibly even bring that in a little closer for you. Now notice I'm doing this totally dry this time. Now we're going to come in like this, and this might leave a little bit of different texture, color and whatever. It might be a little uneven, I should say, but I'm not worried about that. Now what I like to do many times is just come in when I'm working something like this. I mean, these are old buildings, they're rusted, even though it may have been in a part of the country where they didn't use a lot of tin, but they're going to get they're going to have weathered effects on them that I like to try to pursue. So we're just going to do this, and I'm going to go back to the red and the burnt sienna again. I think that's my favorite in this particular area. You see, it's just going to be something that you're not going to see it too good on your screen right now. You might better when it's on another television. But okay, we've got that part of it in, and then we're going to come across now. Now I happen to know this is going to dry a lot lighter. But the first thing I want to do is incorporate that into the top of it. Okay, now I think these colors worked out very nicely, and so as a result of them, I'll leave a little bit of a highlight area here just to indicate that's where this ends, and then I'm going to bring it on down, and I'm going to bring it down pretty lightly. All the way pretty much to the horizon. Not worried about any detail. Just want this to stand out in the distance. I wanted to, for this I have to kind of go back over that line a little bit. It'll show up later. Okay, now I'll take some of the same color, the green, the blue, and the brown. This time I'm going to come up from the bottom, and I'm really going to give the effect that it's a lot more weathered where the water rises up and down. Also add some warmer color into this, and some blue. Okay, now that's kind of beginning to get somewhat of the effect that I'd like it to have. Maybe come up a little bit higher with it even. Some of the areas I'll drag it all the way down. I didn't want that to happen, but it happens. Oh yeah. Again, this might be a little bit dark on your screen, but in the photograph that you have attached to it, you'll be able to see it a lot more clearly. Now, while we're allowing for this to dry, I'll come and dry brush a little bit across the top. Okay. For the roof, we want to go into pretty strong with our burnt sienna. So we're going to start here. We want to give the illusion that this is catching a little bit of light. So I like to use that flat brush. Now this original painting is only 9 inches by 13 inches. But I still like to just make that one stroke, make my statement, and go on. And I find it's the best way to do it. Now, kind of overshot the mark up here, so we'll just drag it down and we'll figure out how to fix that later. I think that's going to be enough on this, on the particular roof that we're doing there. We're just going to come down and we're going to do a little bit of an area here. But since this is not catching the light directly, I'm going to take some of my original color that I used, the green, the blue, the ultramarine blue, and the burnt sienna, and just tend to kind of make that a little bit gray down and darker. Now, as I'm waiting for my paper to dry, and I should say allowing it to dry, I'm going to get some of my other brushes, maybe a number 4, number 6, something like that. Now I'm going to begin to take a little bit of the blue and the brown, particularly because they're going to be great colors to put strong darks in with. I want to start showing a little bit of that overhang. And notice I love doing this while it's still a little bit damp, because it gives me a chance to really allow this to work with the flow of the paper. In other words, I don't want this to be like a cast shadow, but I think it needs that effect that the darks give it. So we'll pull that down like that, and I think that made that a lot crisper. And maybe even bring a little bit more in there like that. Now, we might want to put a couple of suggestions of windows and doors. So we'll just come in down here and simulate a door like that, and maybe another one here. Here we'll just have the indications of a window. Again, not really worried about putting too much detail in. And we'll have another kind of a larger window or whatever it's supposed to be here. And up here we'll just maybe come in and just indicate something else up there. Some of those whatevers, okay? Now we want to take, again, a fairly flat brush and dry brush some different colors down the front of it. Now that's running a little bit more than I thought it would at this point. We'll let it run. Okay, and then lastly, I want to get a little bit more of the blue and the brown. While that's wet, it's going to be perfect. We'll just come across that bottom area right there and just let that kind of drop down. Again, it's late afternoon. I wanted to show that it's a little bit of a light area. I'm not really worried about cast shadows at this time, however. Now I'll let this dry a little bit, possibly hit this with the roof that bled a little bit. I'll hit it with a little sharper edge. Oh, we'll just kind of let this dry for just a second now. Okay, I'm pretty well finished the area that I was working, so I'd like to do the most fun part of all to me, and that is lift the tape up. It's always exciting to see what kind of effects you're going to have once you do something like that. Now, one thing that I like to do as I'm working, I like to cut a mat to the size that I might want it to be on my finished piece, and immediately we get a much, whoa, here, let's go up a little bit higher. We get a much better idea of what our composition looks like. Now, in the particular sequence that you're seeing this, It makes it look like all of this is a lot darker than it actually is. But I think you'll find that later this will be something that'll be probably just about exactly what I would like it to be. Okay, so we'll just continue on now. And we'll get, at the particular size of this paint, I'm going to get a number 4 brush. And we'll kind of organize our reference material a little bit more. Now, we have some posts and all back behind here. We're going to incorporate that in here in just a minute. But I think the next thing I'd like to do is try to create a little bit of a dramatic effect on the boat itself. Now, probably getting a little too detailed, but I'm just going to put a little bit of something up here, right here, where I mentioned that this ran a little bit more than I wanted it to. Nothing wrong with making that roof just a little bit darker. Make that stand out better. Now, let's just whip out our boat very quickly and just show you how easy this is and how much fun it can be. I'll move this up a little bit like here for you now. First thing I'm going to do, it's a white vessel, so I'm not going to be afraid to really come in and use that kind of a violet color again that I was using. So let's just do this, and maybe we'll leave our posts stand out very clearly at this time. This is probably some color I had mixed a while ago. I think it's the blue and the red. Maybe just a very, very small amount of brown. And I want you to notice how I'm going to create the effects that I want to create by the utilization of my white space and not trying to get too detailed. Okay, and then we're going to pick up a little bit more of this on this side over here. Sometimes you go over the line, which you don't particularly care to do, but it happens, so we'll just do this. Now, that's beginning to give the boat some of the effects that I would like it to have. So, having said that, I'm going to take a little bit of the ultramarine blue and burnt sienna mixture. I want something that's going to be really solid, very dark. So we're going to come across the back of the boat here. And this is going to be a lot darker, but it's going to create the illusion that I would like it to create. Now what's going to happen, of course, this is going to be very dark against what I've already got on there. And I want this effect. You see, it's late evening. I want these shadows to be really cast. But what I'll do when I get down here so it doesn't look abnormal, I'm just going to fade this a little bit like that. You see, add a little water to it, bring it on down. It's going to make it a little bit darker, which is really what I want. Okay, and I think that'll be sufficient to leave that and go to the front part of the vessel. Okay, so here we have the other part of the roof section here. It's a little bit of an overhang, so we'll just a little bit in the front, and we'll just use this to really identify the dark sections. And you can see when you put your darks in like this, it immediately begins to crisp everything up considerably. Likewise, take a little clean brush and drag some of this down. But in this case, I might even make it a little bit darker closer to the edge. Drag a little bit of these darks over here. And if you're not aware, I think one of the first things you have to learn about the rules of watercolor is there are no rules. Now let's just put, this is very foreshortened, let's just put a little window there. I think that brought that out very effectively. Now, sometimes they'll take different colors. I may regret doing this, but we'll take a little bit of my brownish reddish color here. And I'm just going to drag, leave a lot of white in it, but I'm going to drag this across the back. Just gives it a little bit more antiquity, that's all. Having said that, I'm going to do the same thing here. Okay, now pretty close to what we want here. Only thing I might like to do now is just put a little bit more definition on the front of this. Now, I like to use a lot of red on these vessels, so we're going to just put something on it here that's going to really pop it out a lot. Using a little cadmium red. I need to tone it down with that burnt sienna just a little bit. I'm getting carried away here. Alright, now we're going to start at the top. Now notice I'm going to leave a little white edge. So I don't want a bright glaring red. Not on something like this. But I do want it to really stand out. So we're going to bring this, and it's going to go all the way up around here, and then we're going to just end it like that particular section stops. And we're going to come back up to the front again, and we're just going to go around this part here with a little bit of an indication of another line that might be defined on it. Well, just for the heck of it, let's take and put a little trash here on the front of the boat, which you'll have a lot of times. And sort of settles that down a little bit. And then we have, again, another portion of the vessel that could be just a little ribbing or something on it. So we'll just bring that and bring it around like this. Now we'll go around to the other side. In the back of the vessel, we'll take the red and brown again and add a little blue to it. I think it's going to be dark enough there. If not, let's add a little more blue. Alright, I'm satisfied with that. Now, it could have had any color bottom paint on it. But we'll put a little burnt sienna. I always like burnt sienna bottom paint. So we're going to come across here like this. Kind of that rust look. Now we'll start off with this relatively clear. And maybe just put it all over the underside here, because all of this in just a little bit is going to be totally lost. We'll just bring it all the way across like this. And we'll bring it down. This here. I want to excuse me, wait and let that set up just a tiny bit, but while I'm waiting, start putting in some of the other darker areas I'd like to put in. Maybe we might want to show a door back here, just to give it a little bit more definition. Okay, now I think this is dry enough that I can come in with a little bit more of my burnt sienna, ultramarine blue, pretty heavily. And I want to actually show the roundness of the vessel back here. Now, this may run a little bit, I hope it doesn't. Just can't resist it. Okay, now what we want to do back here is we really want to get this on here pretty strongly. And we'll probably put this down relatively dark. It looks dark now and may have to come back with some more darker tones later. And then when we get up to this point, I think we can begin to put a variety of colors to maybe try to give this a little bit more of a weathered look. So let's just soften that line a little bit. I've got some of my green and burnt sienna here. Bring that around like that. Maybe add a little water to it. Bring it up like this. I want to be careful though. I don't want to lose. Get me a little dry brush in here. Now what I'm doing is I'm adding the texture that I'd like to add to the vessel. But along with it, notice I'm softening that edge and giving a lot greater feeling of brownness. Okay, now across the back of the vessel, we're just going to take some more of that blue and maybe put a little bit of red in. I think I have a little brown in this also, but that's okay. It'll gray it down nicely. Now since we have a white vessel, or what was white, pure white at one time, we're just going to put a little transparent wash across the back, and we're going to make sure that blue is not that strong. This should all be dry enough now where it should just come right across and pick up something kind of like what I have up in this particular section of the boat right here. Now, again, back here, we don't want this to be extremely overdone, so we're going to tone that down a little bit also. Now, we'll let all this dry a little bit, perhaps, since this is not in an area like behind the boat, I could leave this a little bit lighter. It's not in a dark section like this that's pretty well surrounded. Okay. Now, first thing I'm going to do, sketch a couple of areas in here to indicate where I would like my water area to begin to disappear, such as right here. And then the first thing I want to do, give me a good number 4 brush again. I'm going to come right under it. I'll take my blue, red, and green again. I want a very definite darker section here. It's going to be slightly darker. So I'm going to bring it down right now, and I'm going to kind of begin to fade it. Catch me some light on it like that. And then since we're using this color here so effectively, let's change to something a little bit prettier. Put our next big water level. Catching a lot of light now. Across here like this, and maybe another little area like this. Don't want to overdo it. But I do want to come back right under this area here and add a little bit more dark. Kind of give that line a little bit of definition like that. Okay, now while we're waiting for this to dry, let's come across the back of the vessel. And we're going to use a little green and burnt sienna. And we're going to give this tarp here a feeling of actually having some of the green effect on it. I'm not afraid to make this too dark at all. Might want to get a little bit more dry brush to it. Let's add a little bit more sienna and green together, less water. A dry brush, if you're interested in, is just simply where you get your pigmentation to a point that when you drag your brush like that, it leaves some areas. Now, remember, this doesn't have to be perfect. Don't want it to be perfect. So we're going to come in here and do this. Bring it down like that. Allow a lot of our dry brush to show through if at all possible. Come down like that, okay. And then we're going to skip a little light area like it's tied down on the bottom here. Bring it across and then just suggest it just going down like that, okay. Now, let's go back to our ultramarine burnt sienna color again. And on the side of it, that's not catching light. I'd like to really come in and wrap it around like that, maybe make it look like it's extremely, much more strongly dark on that side. Now, come up here, put our mask in the same color. Drag us a little line like that. Now, a little key when you start putting in stuff like this. Don't panic if your line's a little dark. You want to break it up. Actually, I better put in a little bit more of that water on the other side before I do that, so we'll come back to that in just a moment. Now, I really like this color that I used. I'm going to use it in quite a few other areas. I didn't know what I'd use. I wanted somewhat of a neutral color. So we'll go back to our, it's working very well. I'm going to continue to use it. So let's go back to the same basic greenish color mixed with the other colors. Maybe put a little yellow with it. And if you're wondering why, I really have no earthly idea. Okay, need more burnt sienna in there though. Okay, now we're going to just come along here. Begin showing the lighter part of this sandy area. I think this is still on the video. Good. Here's where I'll really pick it up and start showing quite a bit of the dry brush. Now we want to have this settling down, but we do also want to show like this possibly a lot of, that's a very, very lovely color. I'm very pleased with that. Okay, now, so what I'm doing is I'm just basically running this in here. I don't want to leave too much of the light coming through in this particular area. And we keep it, where it's interesting and it's not too dead looking, but we do want to begin to develop some darker sections in that foreground. Now, let's add a little bit of white to that, the water, excuse me. Okay, and what we're doing is we just soften it up a little bit. We're going to create some of the different areas out here that are eventually going to separate the water and the land. But notice, I'm not going to try to do it completely around the edges. I'm going to let a lot of this just run together. But I will soften that part right there slightly. Now, the critical thing, I don't think this is too dark to do this yet, is you have to always come back in with those strong accenting darks, what I call the linkage. This is what's going to begin to link everything together. First of all, I'm not afraid to come in with this almost solid and hit it right under here and actually fuse it with that wet water. And we'll bring it around here and around here, and then on the bottom area. Now I might want to tone that line down a little bit later, but for now I'm perfectly happy with it. Okay, now then we want to come along the edge here. We want to put a little bit of darker section like this, bring it up a little bit. Now I'm just really creating random texture. Come in here, do the same thing. However, this needs to still be slightly darker. I might need to fuse some of that together. Look at how all those colors coming together begin to really complement one another. so we don't have to have all of this extremely or severely dark. But we want it dark enough to start making our statement, and we don't want to be afraid of it. And again, we're just going to put some different movements in here to connect all of this together. But we still want the dark to become the predominant part of it now. And then we're going to start breaking it up into some different effects like this. Okay, but this is getting pretty close. I don't want to overdo it. However, I do want to come back in with my smaller brush now, number 4. Start beginning to put in possibly trashy stuff down here. Okay, now I may come back and add some more darker accents to this in a little bit, but before I do anything else, I want to make sure that this color right here and the color under the boat, at the base of the boat, fuse together. And we literally lose the definition of the line. Now I'm going to come across here, we'll put another line here, another line here, and put a little bit of trash right here, maybe hanging over the side of the boat. I love this trashy stuff, man. I just absolutely got a couple of little ropes going down here for whatever reason. See, and anything like this at this point really does begin to dress it up. Got a little bit darker section there to make that stand out better. Okay. Now I think that's doing everything I want it to do. Now I've got a little thing in the distance here I want to deal with. I've got some of these posts that I want to be slightly darker. So I'm going to drag them like this. And there's a neat little thing I learned a number of years ago from a watercolor artist that I have mentioned many times, and the different things I've done. Y'all know who I'm talking about, who's I consider to very strongly be my mentor. One of many, of course, like all of us have, and I never forget the people that help me. And don't you, because they're the ones that helped you make the great strides. And we don't need ego trips in art. No one has a monopoly. No one's really, as far as I'm concerned, that much better than anyone else. We just have a situation where people sometimes learn to express themselves in ways that they never felt like could, and each person has something to say. And I think whatever they have to say is important, and what's the most important part is that it's important to them. Okay, now we want to have like a brace up here, whatever this was supposed to be. And we're going to have it coming across like this. Bring some of that dry brush down. And what we're really doing is just putting some areas in here that are going to kind of break this monotony up a little bit. Because it's, and I want it to stand out real well. Now, before this dries completely, I want to take a little bit of the darker color. And what you do is you drag it across here and break it. You see, we don't want to show something that's extremely definite. We want to lose it and find it. You see, and then we'll come across the back of it the same way. You have that little accent area that really makes it very attractive and interesting. Come on down like this, and then like this. Okay, we're going to leave room for very faint chimney in the distance. And I think that completes the picture there. However, on further analysis, I would like this to come out a little bit further. And I also like the little bit darker accent. Okay. I believe we can leave it for this particular area. I think I've said everything I want to say. Now we might want to come back in, since these were supports and they were done different ways. I might just put a, again, I'm not really interested in definition, but I might just indicate just a little bit of the texture and so forth. Down here, see this dried a lot lighter, and of course I'm being very careful not to overdo these values. So I'll blend that together, and I think that's going to work out just fine. Okay. Now, last thing I would like to do, and I think I'll wait till last on these things, because I would want to put a couple of very large posts going up here. I want to make sure I put them in the right place. But before I do, let's come in with some of our grayish color we were using a while back. No, let's use the blue and red. Okay. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to come in and kind of give an indication of where some of our water lines are again. So notice I'm going to really allow quite a bit of sparkle to be in this area here. And over here, same way. You know, and we don't really need to do a lot. We're catching a lot of light on this, and then maybe in one particular area like this, we'll just come across and make it a solid mass. It kind of connects it with that mass over there, you see. And then we'll come a little bit lower than that, and we'll just hit this with a little bit of, not a weight, but whatever it happens to be. Put a little bit of a darker color here and bring it across like this. And now we're almost to the land area, and I don't think we need anything else on there. We're catching a lot of water, a lot of a glistening effects on that. So we'll leave it. Now, making sure that's dry and nice and flat. Now, the next thing I'd like to do is create this effect we had with the sienna and the green. A little bit too much green again. Now, a lot of this, if you'd see the palette I'm using, the way I'm breaking up this palette, you would probably not believe it, but okay, now we're going to just kind of give a little bit of an indication of some effects of the way that the land and so forth is manipulated, the sand, I should say. A little bit more burnt sienna. We'll come across like this and around like this. Pick up some of these lighter areas. And again, we're just kind of giving a little pattern for the water to flow in. And we're going to do this. And we're going to come in and we're going to put a little bit of it right here in the middle. You have a little raised area like this. Come down. Start jotting a little bit of this in here. Okay, now once more, while it's wet, we want to create an interesting effect by coming in with our ultramarine blue, burnt sienna again, making it very strong. And we just want to start picking up some areas of interest. And you create the interest by how willing you commit how you are willing, I should say, to commit yourself to the darks. So you notice how this is automatically going to begin looking like the opposite side. because I'm not afraid to come in and do the things that I'm doing as far as the dogs are concerned. So we have the blue and the brown. Again, we just show a little bit of a mixture on here, but we want this part coming down to be particularly strong. Come in the little area in the center here, kind of break it up a little bit. Tone down more things as we need to, like this. So I don't want this to be a lot stronger here. Now the final thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come across the bottom of it. I'm going to take a little bit of that blue and that red again, gray down slightly. And when you mix in that red, it will get ahead of you. Now we definitely want more blue here than red, so we'll turn it down slightly. Get out the old trusty trial paper here. I think we're right where we need to be. Now let's just take, remember most of this is going to be in shadow. So notice how I'm not afraid to just come right over this. Pick up some sparkling effects for the water. Now this should be dry enough that I might even pull this off. Okay, now as I come out here, I'm going to come in and add a little bit more water to it, and I'm just going to let this kind of fade right on out into that other water area. And I think that really gives it a very nice effect as far as what we want. Now what I love about doing stuff like this, I'm going to come in with some more of my darker color, and we're just going to come in like we're just hitting a little bit of a shadow of the boat back here. How about that? And that further ties it down a little bit more. Now we just about got this baby finished. And just to give you an idea of how it's really gelling, I'll come back and do this. Give you a real good idea, a lot better idea I should say, of what it's looking like. I'm very satisfied with it. Now, this is the fun part of painting a painting like this now, as far as I'm concerned. Okay. Now I have a decision to make. I feel like I need something with a little bit more height in the front of these. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take a little bit of my blue and my sienna again. And I have some pilings I'd like to put in there. Our ultramarine blue. I'm particularly satisfied with the way I let this, I should say, I had this particular part of the boat fused together. I felt like that was very critical, and I'm satisfied that we pulled that part off. Alright, now we're going to go with the blue and the sienna, maybe a little red in it, but we want most of the blue and the brown. We want a strong, strong, dark color, but we want color. Okay, now I've got to really make some decisions now, because I don't want to overdo this. So let's just take pretty wide brush so I don't get too careful. I'm going to bring a piling down like this. Now what I like about that piling, notice how it repeats this movement. And then we're going to have another one that we're just going to bring down like this and let it cross. I love these pilings. I just feel like they add so much to a painting. And I'm very tempted to put in another one, but I'm going to put it in. This one got shortchanged. Just a little fella. Okay. Since this is all wet, look at how this enhances the wetness of it by just showing those reflections like that. I believe we'll leave that. Now let's start adding a little bit more of the trash in. I think we're going to be just about finished this thing. Now, what I love is you get to this point you can start adding some things to it. I call it trash, but you know, they're just all kind of riffraff you find around areas like this, particularly where the tide comes in and out. Many years I spent on the Gulf Coast. I love walking on the beach, and you really never knew what you were going to find. Now, we have a little rope coming over here, rolling around, maybe to the ground. See, it just kind of enhances the round effect of that vessel. Then maybe down here, just something to tie it down. I have this coming in like this, maybe put a little bit more accent there. Now let's put some more of these little doovers here that cross those posts, make them settle down a little bit. Now, again, you might wonder why I added this, but I just felt like I needed something a little bit more vertical to give the feeling of depth behind this. So we did it. Now, again, you can have little things coming up like this. You know, you can just have all kind of trash. That's what I love about it. Now, you do have a possibility of a line that could come down like this and hook up to another pier that you're not seeing. So I'm just going to bring that thing just like this. And just hook it right to the back of that vessel. And you see, it doesn't seem like it's a lot. But what I'm doing with this is I'm actually putting a lot of things in that are just actually putting just the right amount of detail to give the effect of more texture, whatever. Now here, let's start showing some of our darker stones. Make that just a tiny bit darker there. See, and so we don't have this flat watery area here, I should say. We'll just come across like that. Put a little bit of that in. Anything that we can do to break this up, and not only break it up, but also create a little bit more interest. Now, I'm not going to do anything here. I think that's enough as far as showing the texture of that. But I love picking up these little textured places into different areas. Let's make that a little darker to make that stand out. You know, you don't think it's a lot, but when you come in right here at the end of it, a little bit more interest and definition many times can really add a lot to a painting. Okay, now we have that. I think I want to bring one more little area down like that. You're wondering why? Because I liked it. Okay. Now, you always have a little trash on top of these vessels. Miss the coast for that reason. I used to love to go out to the water areas every weekend, and I'll tell you, it was never a time you go that there wasn't something different, unique, some kind of thing somebody had put together. You wonder how it even floated, but it did. Let me make sure that something of this is wet. I'm going to come down now with a line here, and then we'll take another one. Now notice how I purposely drag this brush, create texture. I lose the brush, I create interest. Let's get a little bit of our darker color. You got to watch. I just picked up some of the post stuff over here. Now got another little deal here. Like to have a little bit of something coming down to that. Maybe it's an old net on the top of the boat. We'll add bit more trash like this, different places. What we're doing is every little bit we do like this, we're settling the vessel down a little bit. Now we have a little, probably this was a running light of some type. Want to make sure we do that and bring it down and not, again, get too monotonous with it. Let's drag that across there a little bit. And now sometimes I like to pull in a couple of more little things like this where we bring the surf out a little bit more. Maybe enhance the dark behind it vessel a little bit. Let's just create another couple of little trashy things here that don't mean anything, but just enough to indicate that there's some of those whatevers. Okay, I think we're getting to the point we want to take our misket off, put the seagull in. I think we're getting pretty close to the finalization of this one. I see a lot of things I anticipated in the sky, I was worried about. I'm very, very satisfied with the way that I did them now. I'm going to put this on pause just a second. I got one more thing I'm going to do that I'm going to show you how you get a little color harmony in your painting. So let's just pause it for a second. Now what I did was I took a pause to go get some fresh water. And now what I'd like to do, we have a lot of yellow at the top of the picture, very little down here. So I'd like to just come in. And believe me, you don't need a lot right now. Could be reflected in the water. But if you pick up a little bit of yellow, it will absolutely tie the picture together down here like nothing you could ever believe for something that simple. I might even wash a little bit of it on here. Now, you won't see it a lot. This is a little 1/4 inch flat brush, if any of you are wondering what I'm using here. So I'll put it here. I'll bring it in. I'm maybe getting a little strong. I'll take my finger and lift that up a little bit, but it's going to dry a lot lighter. So I'll even put a little bit of it on here coming in. See? You can use it just about anywhere. Don't want to be too strong with it though. Lift some of that up a little bit. Of course, it's going to dry a lot softer, as you can imagine. And we don't want to overdo it, so I think we'll just go ahead and call this completed, except for a couple of more things. One more thing in particular. Get our misket remover. Let's see if we can bring it on down and focus on our seagull. Drop this down a little bit here. Now, let's see if my misket preparation worked out real well. If it didn't, there's always white paint. Probably what I should have done originally is use the white paint, but it's the way it goes. Now, take a number 2 brush, and the first thing I want to do, put a little bit of a shadow area in, where the back area, particularly of the boat, where I think the bird where I think it needs to be. So we'll come in like this. Remember, this is late in the evening now, okay? So we'll do that and let it fade into the white. Now on the underside, you really don't have to be afraid to come in and really hit the darks in, all the way underneath the bird, in fact. So we'll come like this. Almost this entire area here will be in complete shadow. So this will give us a chance to kind of tie a few things together that I'd like to tie together. Okay, and then we just pull our little line off like that. Now, kind of overshot the mark on that one a little bit, and I'll show you how we'll handle that in a moment. Now, when it comes to my seagulls, let's just bring this up a little bit. I generally like to make the head and the tips of the tails a little bit blacker. But we'll just leave this. And we'll make the tip here, make it stand out a little bit more. And then maybe do the same thing out here. But because of the lateness of the evening and so forth, I just don't really want to fool with it too much. So we'll leave that. And we'll come over here and maybe just use the old slight indication of what we're trying to do technique. Now, had a little bit more white showing around the bird that I wanted up at the top. So we're going to take this and just touch it up a little bit. It's only paper and water. It's not something you need to be afraid of. Now, I just got a little bit rambunctious there, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back and I'm going to just get a little bit more of the similar color to the sky. I'm going to just fill all this in. Just dry brushing so you lose it. Well, the key to this is to correct it in a way that you do lose it. Now, I'm going to go ahead and do something that I like to do on anything like this. I'm going to take the blue and the brown, which mixes black. I like to make the tips of the heads of these birds a little darker. Accent the tails a little bit. Maybe the tips of the wings. And the tips of the wings here. I think that really does make it stand out a little bit better. Okay. Enough said. I think this baby's ready for a signature. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a little bit of the, get a little bit of my Chinese white, which is not a color that I normally use except in the M-gram watercolors, because the M-gram pigmentation is so strong that it covers better than any white I've ever used. Normally Chinese white is not really a good color to use. One last thing I just noticed we don't want to forget. Come over here and we have another little support area here. That to stand out real good. Now let's take the white. I'm going to take a little bit of the burnt sienna. That's a good color. Get the right combination there. We'll put the signature. It's the part every artist dreads the most because of so many past experiences of screwing it up. And we'll put, there's a lot of people that question whether or not you should put the year, like the 01, things like that. But personally, I always love looking back at paintings that have been completed and actually see the year they were completed, particularly when I get into people like the Impressionists and others that I love to study. So, let's just lift this up a little bit. Look how that yellow really pops out and picks up that sky. And I think we're about ready to put the finishing touches on this thing. I'm going to look at it for just a second. I always see a little something like right here. I felt like these were little areas here I'd like to see stand out a little stronger. A couple of them. Because see, you got that strong vertical movement now, which I put in to break up a lot of the flatness of it. And if you don't watch it, then you'll have something else pop up somewhere else. So you just work it back and forth, work it back and forth, like that. Okay. Hope you enjoyed it. As I mentioned in the beginning, we'll just call this one Low Tide.